Norman, for people who may not know, what exactly was your relationship with OJ, and how did you guys first cross paths?
I was his actually. They called me his manager, but actually he worked for my company, and I was the CEO, so I was over top of everybody there. So technically, I managed him. We met at my airplane hangar back in 1999 on a gentleman's bet. I bet to my attorney I could promote anybody, anything, anywhere, and he brought over O.J. Simpson, and that's how I ended up meeting him. And that was a little bit of a shock. I'm like, wow, preconceived murder, that's a tough one. So my attorney, he got the best of me on that deal.
And I guess from that point, then, where did the relationship go? Like, did you guys obviously from there then spent quite a lot of time together or got to know each other quite well?
Yes. We went from that, actually, from that first meeting to a restaurant where I kept asking him if he killed all those people, and he kept asking me, what do I want out of this deal? And after a lot of drinks, he just said, I don't know, how do you put it? You don't want to know what happened that night. Let it go. And that was the reason why I couldn't let it go, because he didn't say I didn't kill him. He didn't say I didn't know. He just said, I don't want to know what happened. So obviously he knew. He knew something.
And for you, I mean, at what point is that even a question or a conversation that you can have? I would assume it's something that's in your mind from the moment you meet somebody like OJ.
Yes. I was just sort of hoping he would give me the answer. Honestly, if he would have said I didn't do it, I had nothing to do, I didn't know nothing, then I could have read his body language better and then proceeded from there. Instead, he didn't say that. So I had to know. So I spent 20 some odd years hunting for the answers to this question.
And was it something you had considered before your relationship with him, or did this whole thing blossom out of maybe getting to know him, and then it just became one of those things you couldn't let go of?
That's exactly what happened. I didn't really know him beforehand, and I wasn't a sports fanatic. So really, it was no big deal for me, O.J. Simpson. I was in the business world. That's what I do. So a sports thing was totally not in my realm. So when they introduced me to OJ, to be honest, I didn't even think it was OJ Simpson because he was walking all crippled up and everything. He didn't look right. I'm like, that's OJ Simpson, the one who jumped over fences and killed those people. I had a hard time believing that was the OJ Simpson that everybody was hyping as a big killer, strong, beat up, Ron Goldman and the whole 9 yards. After seeing him, it took him a half hour to get out of the car. So that brought up questions like, how could he have done all that if he can't even get out of a car?
Yeah. And uh, um, so then at what point, obviously for people, some people may not know, you you produced Who Killed Nicole. Um, where did that concept, I guess, before we get to the book, where did the concept for that, um, I guess, how would I rephrase the question? When did you switch gears from maybe just a little bit of curiosity or wanting to know for your own personal reasons to like, okay, this is something that I'm actually going to pursue? And if I'm not mistaken, you put like $1 million of your own money or something like that into the production
It
of
was a lot of money. I had to promote OJ. I had to put him in gigs, and I put him on tour all over America, and I paid all the bills. So you figure 10 years of touring was a lot of money, and then I had to pay investigators, and I had to pay for rewards. I had $100,000 reward we put out in one of the magazines. You can Google that one. So there was a lot of money spent because I needed to know. And at the time, I didn't have a problem with the money. I mean, it was I just sold my publicly traded company, so I was doing pretty good. I bought a helicopter company and a bunch of other little toys. This was just something I needed to know. And sometimes in life, you get a quest, you just have to know. And it's not over. I mean, it's over to the degree of O.J. Simpson, but it's not over in my mind to Glenn Rogers and the other people that he had murdered.
Do you think, I guess we're probably skipping forward, but do you think now, obviously with OJ having passed away and stuff, will we ever see a definitive answer to the question?
Well, it sits there. To be honest, if you just watch the movie and the book, everybody who's watched my movie, 99% of them, when they come out of the theaters, because we had a survey guy doing this, said that that's the definitive story, and they believe now.
Mm.
You have to actually get proof out there to the people so they can actually read it for themselves. That's why I didn't say take my word for it. I said take my evidence and you figure out what happened. And everybody who's taken the evidence, it all directs in one direction. There's nowhere else you can go.
And I guess to go back, when you first decided that you were going to make the movie and things like that, like how does somebody even go, I guess, about, you have a relationship with this guy, and obviously it's unique circumstances because a lot of the nation were convinced that he was this killer and he had gotten away and all this stuff. Um, how does somebody go about, like in your position, how do you go about um, switching from maybe just morbid fascination with something like that to, okay, I need to sit down now and I need to make a plan of to find the true story. How does somebody go about that?
I think it's instinct. It never was we never planned on a movie. I never planned on any of that. That was never a plan. I was just filming everything so I could catch everything on tape so I could play it back and listen to what he was saying and listen to his friends, which were also on the tapes, so that I could get their testimony basically. I just wanted to know in order to find out, you really need to record everything. And so the movie was basically based off stuff I had recorded. I never even was going to do the movie. A producer came to me after he found out what I had found, went through everything. We had met with NBC. No, it was CBS, the president of CBS. We were in their studio, and I explained to them what happened and what my beliefs were, and the president jumped up and said, "Geez, you've got the definitive story. How did we miss this?" And after that, everybody wanted to make the movie based on everything I had found, and that's how the movie and the book was made. It wasn't made by me thinking I was going to do it at first. It was after I had found it. Do I want to keep everything to myself and let the world wonder what happened? Or should I give up everything like I did to the producers and stuff and say, you make it? And that's what we did. I never intended on a movie. I never intended on a book. That was just something that everybody said, you can't just keep this to yourself, let it go. And I did. I put it out in the public and let them have it. And to this
Do
day, I haven't had made hardly any money off anything. I'll be
Yeah,
honest.
I've seen you
It's
mention
not
that
about
stuff
the
and things.
money. It never has been about the money. Our movie is on YouTube.
Yeah.
You don't make a ton of money putting it on YouTube. And by the time you split it with everybody that's involved with the movie, there's no money left. So it's never been about the money. It's been about finding the truth and letting the people have it. And that's all I really wanted. And I think I did a good job. I mean,
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, I would definitely agree.
I don't know what else I could have done. I mean, I am taking everything that I've gotten because being the OJ go-to guy by putting him on tour, see everything that part I did plan. By putting him on tour, I knew that the people around OJ Simpson would come up to me and answer questions because they'd figure, okay, he's with OJ. And I'd get the answers I needed. If I was just some guy trying to make a movie, who'd want to speak to me?
Mm.
So just going out there with OJ, putting him on tour, being a promoter, being what I was, everybody came to me and said, I've got something you need to know about. I've got something you need to know about. And every time they give me something, I take it out, give it to the guys, the investigators, et cetera, and say, find out if this is true. And then they would take it from there until we put all the pieces together.
Can you remember any point during your investigation or whatever you want to call it where there was like maybe an unexpected discovery or a revelation about there being another story other than the hugely publicized, oh well, obviously OJ done it and got away?
Yes. I When Glenn Rogers got in touch with me, I knew there was more to the story than what everybody was telling me because nobody wanted to talk about him. And then they sent me just terabytes of information regarding him and all the other murders he was involved in. And I started researching everything, and it really opened my eyes because I'm like, wow, this is something that's never been in the media. Nobody's talked about this, but yet there it is. It's in black and white. You can't really hide it. And so that made me just go, I guess you could say, crazy wanting to know what really happened, because then I knew that everything they had been telling the public was a fib. I couldn't find any truths in anything. It was all make believe. I'm like, everything, and I got to admit it, in America, 90% of everything you read is make believe. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
and you just got to take it for what it's worth. Uh, so they did a great job of painting OJ as a jealous, angry man wanting to kill his wife, but nothing was further from the truth. He had no jealousy. I was on tour with him. He had girlfriends. He wasn't jealous of them. He partied with them. So everything that I thought was true became a false.
Mm. How difficult was it throughout the course of all this, the book, the movie, everything? Maybe some of the stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about that you experienced. How difficult is it to, I guess, see past that make believe? I'm sure from the outside looking in, I can only imagine there was probably hundreds of thousands, if not more, of like, false tips, false piece of information, people maybe making up stories to try and get their 5 minutes. How difficult was it to navigate to actually find a true story?
It was very challenging, but at the same token, it was easy because you can not, if somebody tells you something, you can find the truth out. Just like this Ehrlich guy who's supposed to have been with OJ, that was in the news for a while, but he didn't even know OJ back in 1994. So I mean, it was easy to find these things out. It's not as complicated as people put. To if it's something that's false, I can pretty much find it pretty quick. I didn't have a big problem with that. I had a bigger problem with everybody obstacles jumping in my way, stopping me. That was my biggest challenge. Nobody wanted me to find the truth. I mean, just when I first started, Marvel Comics sued me for like, I don't know, some $1 billion because my old company was Spider Boy International. And they said my association with OJ Simpson was hurting their Spider Man image. So I was
Wow.
in court over $1 billion lawsuit just by association with OJ Simpson. So I had to overcome those obstacles while I was working on these other obstacles.
I feel like that's a credit to you and your belief in the true story because, I mean, just that obstacle alone, I think, would have put put most people off the trail maybe and just said, you know what, this is just not going to work out for me. It's going to ruin or potentially ruin my whole career in life. So let me just pack it in and forget about it. And I think that's a testament to you to, spend a lot of your own money, a serious amount of money, time, effort, credibility, I guess.
Yeah. It was a fight. It was a fight, and I didn't give up. And Marvel hit me right off. It was the first event we did. They came after me. So I thought about quitting. I'm like, well, if I just quit now, everything will go away. Uh, but then if I quit now, then who would I be? I just can't do that. I'm not a quitter. Wouldn't have taken my company public if I was a quitter. You know, I'm just not that way. And when I want to know something, I want to know. And that's just the bottom line.
How did that affect your relationship with OJ? Like when you had decided this is something I want to know the real story and stuff. Obviously, OJ is still a part of your life at this point. So how did he react to hearing or when you tell him like, this is something I'm gonna pursue?
He didn't know. He
Okay.
didn't know any. I didn't want him to know. He found out when I was in prison, other than when he was in prison. But other than that, I never told him, because if I would have told him, things would have went, everything would have been different. He would have told his friends to stay away from me, don't talk, and it would have been a big challenge. I needed him to be free. So I didn't tell anybody. Everybody thought I was just going to promote OJ and put him on tour. The magazines had it that way. I kept it going that way. I didn't want nobody to know what I wanted.
So when you guys are approaching, friends, acquaintances, things like that, how are you phrasing the conversations? So, because I wonder, like, at any point did somebody maybe get a little bit suspicious and maybe try and reach out to him, be like, hey, some guys came around and they're like asking a bunch of questions or trying to figure out some stuff.
I didn't really phrase it. I basically just, sometimes people would just come up and I'd ask them a question or two, like, hey, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. I hear you knew OJ back in the day. And then they would tell me what they wanted to tell me. Or I'd just sit there and listen. I'd stand in the background and let OJ talk to him. And from there, I could learn. It wasn't about me asking anybody questions. I didn't, some of it wasn't even on camera. It was just OJ was talking.
Mm.
And that's why I needed the film footage. And I could play it back and ask, find out what he was saying to them.
When he did eventually find out, uh, did he find out himself? Had you contacted him, or did you
I
have a
contacted
conversation?
him in prison and told him that I had a letter. Actually, I sent the letter that Glenn Rogers sent me to him in prison and said, here's a letter that Glenn Rogers sent me to say, give to you, OJ. So I'm giving it to you. So I sent it to OJ in prison. And when he got the letter, he contacted me and said, I told you to stay away from that guy. I don't know you anymore. And that's when I knew he knew Glenn Rogers.
Interesting. Why do you think that OJ was so adamant? You mentioned right at the start, when you asked him about the situation, he said, like, leave it alone. You don't want to know what happened that night. I don't want to get into it. Why do you think he felt like that?
Because he knew he was part of it at the beginning. He could have been retried as a co-conspirator if I found out. And so he didn't want anybody to know he was even there.
Yeah. The, I feel like even now, after all this time, and obviously, you've had the movie and the book. A lot of people, I will agree, definitely see that as the definitive version now. But I feel like that there's still a lot of people out there that see it as, oh yeah, OJ Simpson, that's that, murderer who got away with murder. Um, do you think that will ever change?
No, I don't. Sorry about that.
Is that because of the media and how well they kind of played the whole thing and like made him this kind of larger than life character?
Yes, and they had their own thing going on, and they weren't going to change it regardless. So everything, that's what they wanted everybody to believe.
Why do you think that he was singled out? Is it because he was a celebrity, a sports star, famous?
Exactly. He was celebrity, sports star, black guy, white woman. You had the race issue. You had everything sizzle. A lot of sizzle.
Um, there's a lot of people out there I feel who still maintain that he was wrongly acquitted. How would you respond to that statement?
Uh, Technically, he was wrongly acquitted, but he wasn't tried for the right thing.
Yeah,
I mean, if he would have been tried as a co-conspirator, that would have been different. Acquitted for murder, he should have been,
yeah.
because he wasn't the murderer.
it's funny because like there's such a perception still about that, and I think people don't realize sometimes as well. And I think that's key what you just said there about yeah, acquitted for one thing but maybe not another. Um and that's something I think is key to mention, and I've seen you mention this time and time again, and I feel like maybe a lot of the mainstream audience never really clue in on that key piece where you know, it's you haven't ever actually said that OJ is completely um, innocent or absolved from any sort of wrongdoing. That's not your version.
Well, I don't think the media knows what happened. It's just that nobody's going to backtrack on all their stories at this point.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's going to stay the way it is.
So, um, the movie comes out, and you know, like you said, there's so many people coming up to you and being like, "Wow, this is like, you know, this is the version. This is what happened. This is the definitive." So, at what point then from there, the idea of a book? Why a book as well, or how did that all,
I
I
just
guess?
figure it's time. I'm done. Get it out there and let the public have what they want. And if they like it, good. If they don't like it, this is my belief. It's over. I think I've solved what the crime of the century is done. I don't know what else I could do. I think it's time for them to. The public wants to know, and people can hide it as much as they want to hide it. But people like me need to come forward and disclose it. If I don't, who's going to do it? Like this one person who came to me and dumped off a terabyte of stuff regarding Glenn Rogers and said she's afraid. So who else would do it if it wasn't me? I was the only one crazy enough to go up against Marvel Comics and all the big guys.
At no point did you, I don't want to say fear for your life, but you know, there's a lot of, I guess, different CD characters you could probably say, and things that could go wrong. And then obviously you mentioned, you know, even things like Marvel suing you and stuff like that. At any point, did you worry about any of that, or was it a case of just I need the truth and I need the truth to get out?
I worried about it a little bit because hitmen were calling me in the middle of the night, and so yeah, but it didn't stop me. I mean, I died 3 years ago from what some think was poison for 7 minutes, and it still didn't stop me. I signed the book deal in the ambulance after I was brought back by a defibrillator. It didn't
Wow.
stop. So nothing was going to stop me from telling what was on my mind.
Did uh did that stuff go away from that point? Like, was there a point where that stopped?
No, now that OJ's dead, it'll all stop because
Mhm.
there's nobody to come after me because he doesn't want it quiet anymore. See, 90% of my problem was OJ telling everybody he wanted me dead. The
Right.
other people I wasn't that worried about.
Hmm. Had you had any conversations from that point where, you know, OJ said, "You're dead to me. I told you to leave this alone." From that point till, you know, obviously the day he died, did you have any more interactions?
Yeah, about a month or so, but ago, he called me, or a mutual friend called both of us and put us on the phone together. And he just wanted to bury the hatchet and say, let's just forget about all the things we had done, and because he knew he was dying, and nobody wants to go out that way. I think that's the thing. 'Cause,
Are you shocked that, you know, like you said, maybe he knows that he's dying, that he didn't just come out and say, "Okay, look,
no,
here's what went on," or
no. OJ
here's
would never tell what happened because he never wants his kids or anybody to know he was even there. And I knew that. I told everybody that a long time ago. I said, OJ will never tell what happened, ever. Just forget about that. And he
For
didn't. He took it to his grave.
yeah, yeah, it's kind of
The only thing
wild.
that was out there is the stuff I caught him saying on tape when he was drunk or on drugs or passed out in the limo or whatever. That was the footage I was really after. Getting OJ to open up and say, just, what's going on, OJ? And he talked about stupid things all the way down to when he caught crawfish in Louisiana for his grandparents. So,
Do you feel like those were the only times that he would ever like uh I I guess from the outside looking in, I would picture him as somebody who, after everything that went on, he was on high alert at all times about like what he would say or who was listening or around. Is that the only time that he would ever, I don't know, maybe slip and kind of loosen up a bit?
yes, most of the time, if you listen to every interview OJ Simpson has done since 1999 on, they're all identical. They're all scripted, word for word. I know because I recorded those interviews because I was the only one allowed to record OJ. He signed a contract with me. So everything he did was on my tapes. And I noticed that's the first thing I noticed is every interview is exactly word for word the same. So he wouldn't slip up. So you can't really interview him expecting anything new.
Yeah, yeah. For people who may not know, could you give I guess in layman's terms, a really simplified central thesis or argument, I guess, that is the key part of your book, the movie, and your belief about what actually happened?
A lot of people don't know that there was a guy, William Watts, that was hired before Glenn Rogers to follow Nicole around, find out who she's dealing drugs with, I think it was, and kill her. And this was in a court proffer from his attorney. So Glenn Rogers wasn't the first one. All that's been hidden from the world. And so if they hired one person, what makes you think they wouldn't have hired another? I mean, that's one thing that stayed with me. And it's in the newspapers. The guy who said he in the proffer was actually arrested. And when he was arrested, he was caught with Paula Barbieri's car, which was OJ's girlfriend driving it, which he said that in his proffer that they told him where to pick it up, and a 22 caliber pistol, which he said in his testimony, a crack pipe, and all of Nicole Brown Simpson's whereabouts in a journal. So if he wasn't telling the truth, why would all that be confiscated? But they said, no, he just made all that up. You can't make it up and then be arrested and they find it all. I mean, so that really got me turned completely around thinking, okay, if they hired one person, why wouldn't they hire another? And Glenn Rogers was known to be hired to do things like that.
And for uh again, for people maybe that are hearing this for the first time, or I feel like a lot of the younger generations are rediscovering, I guess, OJ's case and story. Obviously, true crime has become massively popular in the last couple of years. When
Yeah.
you say they hire, who are you referring to?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if I should, in the proffer, the one that was given to the courts, he claims it was Robert Kardashian hired him. Now, that's a shock to some people. uh, but when they first met, he said OJ met with him, Paula Barbieri met with him, and Robert Kardashian. All three met with William Watts. Then he claims in the final meeting he met privately with just Robert Kardashian, who told him to do that. So I have no clue because I wasn't there. But at the same token, why would you put it in a proffer to the judge? So it just, there's something there. I just, like the investigation went, there's something in everything. There's
Mm.
always a little bit of truth in everything somebody tells you. You just have to pick that out and get rid of the rest of it. So was it Robert? Was it OJ? I have not a clue. That part I left out. I didn't leave it out. It's in the movie. I just let everybody else, you decide on what it is. Here's the proffer. I put it all in there. I put it in the book. So you can read the proffer for yourself and take what you want to take out of it. And this was by him and his attorney to the court.
in your estimation, uh, what would be the reason
allegedly.
behind that? Yeah, like what would be, I guess, the reason behind? Because a lot of people, I think, again, it sounds ridiculous in a way, but um, a lot of people ask just the question whether whether it was Robert Kardashian, whether it was OJ, whether it was this person, that person. A lot of people just ask the question of why.
Well, I think what was happening there, and one of our witnesses said that Nicole, the night before she was murdered, was with Dodi Fayed. And they had a deal where she was going to use Dodi Fayed's airplane or something to pick up a shipment of drugs. And she said Nicole was out openly saying that they're going to go pick up drugs. Now, this is testimony from another person that was with Nicole the night before the murders. So, was Nicole dealing drugs on a large level? Remember when OJ went in to get his remember that whole tape about the 911 call where OJ said, "I want the number to all the drug dealers and prostitutes hanging around my children." So if you take that into consideration and the fact that that's what the witness said she was doing,
Yeah. Um, in your opinion, or yeah, I guess in your opinion, like, um, had you have been in OJ's position, how would you have navigated that whole situation differently? Um, there's
I
a lot
don't
of
know if
people
I
that,
could have done it any better than him because you don't want to be tried for co-conspirator and go to jail. You don't want Glenn Rogers to testify that you were with him, so you'd want him to go away. So I don't know.
yeah,
I think he was stuck between a rock and a hard spot.
yeah, because I always see people online, and obviously it's it's fine. Everyone can be a conspiracy theorist and a private detective online, but so many people, make the observation that it seemed at times that OJ didn't help himself, with some of the comments he made, or maybe the ways he behaved and things like that.
No, that's
Um,
true. He didn't have to, party all the time and do drugs and all that stuff. He didn't have to do any of that. He should have just been a normal guy, but that's not OJ.
for people who don't know, then one of the other, I think, key aspects of what you talk about in the book, and something that I think shocked a lot of people when, I guess, the in-depth information about it came out. Glenn Rogers, uh, again, for the average viewer that is being reintroduced to this story, where does he come into all this, and why is he such a key name?
Well, he was a bona fide serial killer. He's in prison now on death row for being a serial killer. And once we found out that he was actually renting an apartment behind Nicole and he knew her, there was no way to keep him out of it.
Why do you think OJ, um, associated with some of these characters, or allowed himself? Is that just the, I
That's
guess,
who he is.
yeah, like, is that the underbelly of, like, I guess, being rich and famous,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing, when you're out partying, you just get around these seedy people?
Yeah, and OJ, that's what, was around him. He brought that out. He was more like a godfather. Once the murder thing happened, he became a godfather figure.
Yeah.
And with that comes those type of people. But he had him beforehand. So I can't answer that question. Some people I know never really got involved in stuff like that. So why was him? I don't know. I really don't know. I wish he had just, been a normal life, spent time with his kids, and been a father figure. But he wasn't. That wasn't who OJ was. He partied, and that was it.
To play devil's advocate then for a second, I just have a few more questions before I let you go. But to play devil's advocate for a second, to kind of follow on from, I guess, this version that we always got painted by the media of, OJ being kind of seemingly reckless in one sense, with the partying and the alcohol and stuff like that. But then, they also say that he pulled off this murder and managed to get away and get acquitted and stuff like that. Um, there's also stories or rumors, I guess you could call them, of him being, spoiled, bad-tempered, abusive. Doesn't that lend itself maybe to something a little bit more sinister?
I don't know. I really don't know because a lot of sports figures, etc., are that way. So they're not all killing their wives. So I don't. He was no more than most, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're that level of a person, you become spoiled. He was America's hero for a long time. So
Yeah, I can't help, especially from talking to you today, I can't help but feel like, that was just kind of his personality per se. I don't know if I ever believed to the point where he would go and kill people. And I feel like we hear stories about that, about multiple, not even sports stars, but just anybody who gets that level of notoriety, rich and famous.
yeah,
There's always an aspect, I guess, of, and then of course something like this happens. I feel like it's the shoe in to say, oh well, of course, look, of course he's a murderer.
yeah, but it's hard to believe. OJ was likable, but at the same token, OJ run with a lot of bad people that would kill somebody if you asked them to. I don't think OJ was ever a killer. I think OJ he had the ability to have somebody killed. Even when
Yeah.
he was growing up, he belonged to a gang, but he was the leader of the gang. He didn't fight. He got the other people to fight for him. That's always been the way he was. When me and him were on tour, we got into big fights. He'd jump in my face, I'd jump back in his, and he'd back off. Actually, I wanted to see if he was going to hit me or what was going to happen. He never did. Thankfully, I
How
had security behind me.
how was that actually? When you're touring with him and stuff, and you started to get more and more close with him, like, did you ever worry or anything like that before you really started to dig into the truth, I guess, and all the other aspects of the actual story? Did you ever worry about like him as a person or being getting too close to him or whoever he brought around?
I never get, it's a negative on my part, maybe, but I never get close with hardly anybody, to be totally honest. Even my family says, you're out there. I'm not a close person. I
Mm.
grew up isolated when I was a child. So I don't grow close to people. You know, it's just not my way. So OJ, he could be whatever. I never ooh-ahhed him, never got, oh my God, it's OJ Simpson type thing. To me, it was just another guy. We hung out, and that was about it. I never trust people. I didn't trust him no more than I trust a lot of other people to be behind my back. And I always had my one security guy. I always watch everybody. They just watch everybody. Even watch OJ. If
Yeah.
anybody tries to kill me, God dang it, stop them. But I was always a little bit on nutty side. When we were on tour, everybody who watched my videos say that I never seen nothing like me because I put OJ on tour. And I always felt obligated. If somebody's going to kill OJ, they should kill me first. So when we went into buildings, I was always the first one in, pushing the people aside, and he was behind me. Even though that wasn't really my job, I just didn't want him to hurt OJ because of my wanting to need to know. No,
Mm.
that wasn't the right thing to do. So I'm a person of honor, I guess you would say. I put him out there. It could have endangered his life. So I felt obligated to protect him.
Now that he's gone, um, is there any more work for you to do on this case, or in your mind, has every single avenue been completely extinguished
I
and
think I've
we've
extinguished every avenue on that case. I'm still going back now, and that's something I'm working on right now. That's why I'm traveling. Uh, I'm going after all the other bodies Glenn Rogers buried because I have all the documents now. So my new quest is finding all those bodies.
that was going to be my follow-up question was, if the OJ thing is kind of finished per se, is there other cases? Is something like this something you want to
Yeah,
pursue again?
just the Glenn Rogers stuff because I feel bad for the victims that were just forgotten. You understand, Glenn Rogers was interrogated by the police after the Nicole Brown murder case, and they let him go, and he killed the five people that they got him on death row for then, or four people, however many it were. So he went on to kill more people, but he had claimed to kill 70. So that was before Nicole. And I've got a lot of documents that can direct me to some of the bodies. So you can't just let those people just die in vain. Not right.
And with this, what is your intention? Is your intention to write the definitive story of those victims or document it in some way?
We're going to film all of what we're doing when we're out there trying to find the bodies and hopes the people will come forward and give us better, directions. That's coming
But
up real soon. We've already got everything set from the machine, everything, the equipment, everything's ready. So I'm already started.
before I let you go, then, why do you think that he admitted to that? Was it something I had seen people out there mention? Sometimes with these guys, there's an air of like, they like to be like the badass or whatever. It seems a bit crazy, I guess, for a civilized person, why you would admit that maybe you would kill 70 odd people. But why do you think, he said those things?
He got angry at the fact that OJ got credit for his biggest kill.
Mm,
And he liked to get the credit. That's why he's out bragging about other people he's killed. He enjoyed it. And he's already on death row, so it's not like they're going to put him down anymore and they're going to put him down. So, and here OJ is the one getting all the credit for his biggest kill. He would have been in the news if it weren't for OJ.
yeah. Yeah. It's very strange to me still to this day, even when I mention the name Glenn Rogers to people, they kind of still go, "Who? What?"
Yeah. I guess he's the serial killer that never was. They
Yeah.
buried him.
It's wild considering, like you said, there is like so many potential victims there. You would think that,
Yeah. And here
um,
he's nobody cares. The police doesn't care. Everybody's watched my movie. I even stayed in there some of the bodies and where they're buried, but yet nobody will come with me.
hmm,
So what do you do? I got two bodies behind the train station in Vegas that he said he buried there. Why won't they go get them?
why do you think that there's no like interest or
They
push
want it
on?
buried and going away. The whole OJ thing and everybody involved just let it go. And I'm still not letting it go like they asked me to. Just not going to. I'm going to keep digging up bodies until it's over in my mind, not theirs.
So can you see this being the rest of your life's work? Because I know it's probably quite an extensive case, so I don't want to
I
say,
want to do it for about maybe 6 months or so, and then we'll find somebody else to take over. I don't really want to do this. I'm getting older. I'd like to find somebody who wants to take over this, give them everything I've got, and send them out there and say, "You find the bodies. This is a good thing."
yeah.
Time for me to find somebody to take it from me.
Have you been like at any point have anybody reached out to you or whatever? And I know maybe coming from a place of like not really trusting people, but have you been approached by anybody who you think maybe, this might be the person or this might be the team?
No, not yet. Nobody knew I was going to do it. You're the
Okay.
first time I mentioned it's coming. So
Wow.
they don't know that I'm going back out there to find these bodies. But I've got a whole web thing set up for it. So it's going to be cast live. So as we're out there finding them, they're going to have to deal with it because it's going to be live casted.
Yeah. That's That's crazy. That was going to be my final question was, will you continue, or is there anything else that you would like to, I
Who knows?
guess,
Maybe you want to get involved. You ever thought about,
yeah,
hunting for a body?
yeah, sure. Especially something like that. I feel like the story of Glenn Rogers is, and like I said, not to, I don't like to give people like that any sort of fame or notoriety, but it definitely shocks me that he's never really talked about. Like, I feel like you, throughout your time on this case, have probably mentioned his name more than I've seen anybody else. Even all these new true crime shows and YouTube channels and podcasts and things, his name is maybe peppered in there here and there, but they kind of gloss over as like he's like a secondary like character or whatever,
Yep,
which I find
exactly. The true
crazy.
crime shows don't want him to come out no more than the rest of them. It's so many that's like, oh, we're not going to touch that.
Mm,
Well, true crime, you should touch true crime.
yeah,
Oh no, we'll just touch the stuff that we can make up. Well, okay. But there's
yeah,
somebody out there that's going to jump on this, and when they do, then the world will know the truth. I just believe that someday.
yeah,
I
for
may have to
sure.
do 90% of it like I've always had to do, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Norman. I
Same
appreciate you
here.
taking the time. I wish you all the best. I would like to stay in touch actually, to find out more about this. I think it's
Yeah.
God's work you're doing, have done. I'm still shocked that some people don't know this version, of what I would consider the true story. Um, but yeah, I wish you all the best in the future, and I will make sure to everybody listening, everybody in the audience, I will have the links to the book and the movie down below. And obviously, as we get more information about this new case, I'll make sure to share that on all social media.
You can go to whokillednicole.com if you want to find out about the rest of it. My adventures hunting for this stuff, because that's where I'm putting it.
Fantastic. So we'll have the links for that down below.
I appreciate
Again,
that.
like I said, thanks for your time, Norman. I hope to keep in touch, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. And I enjoy being on your show. You've been great.